All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. It's time for the Eastern Conference semifinals and these NBA playoffs, and we're about to see a pair of matchups where there is no love lost historically between these four franchises. You think about how many meetings over the decades that the Philadelphia 76ers and Boston Celtics have had in these playoffs with some of the most iconic players in NBA history taking a part of that. And I'm talking about, greats like Julius Irving, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, just to name a few. And this is the latest chapter in it, as you're going to have the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers getting it on. And then on the other side of the bracket in the East, you've got the Miami Heat clashing with the New York Knicks. And you think about it, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, excuse me, how contentious that rivalry was. There was really no love lost between the Heat and the Knicks, and that dates back to when current Heat team president Pat Riley left the Knicks as their head coach to become team president slash head coach of the Miami Heat. And of course, the fans in New York have never forgotten that, but nonetheless, those were some battles, to say the least. Where the Surgeon General really should have put a warning at the beginning of those games because they were very hazardous to your health if you really weren't up for it. But nonetheless, getting back to this year's version of the playoffs, and the Sixers and Celtics entered this postseason and entered the season as a whole as title contenders, and of course, one obviously is going to be headed home in the next 10 to 14 days, while the other is still going to have the opportunity to realize a championship potentially. Of course, the biggest question mark for this series is going to be the health of the big fella. And I'm talking about Joel Embiid. Embiid, there's a very good chance that he's going to be the MVP of the regular season for the NBA this year. You think about what he brings to the table. And then, of course, he suffered that knee injury in game 3 of Philly's first round series with the Brooklyn Nets. Philly was still able to sweep the Nets without Embiid, who did not play in game number 4. But nonetheless, if you're Philly, you're definitely going to need a healthy Joel Embiid. He's doubtful, according to Doc Rivers, for game 1 as of right now. Things can change nonetheless. But I mean, at the end of the day, I really don't feel that Joel Embiid is going to be 100% throughout this series. And honestly, I don't think that he's going to be 100% for the 76ers for the remainder of their time in the playoffs this year. That means that the onus is going to be on guys like James Harden to step up. And, for me, historically, and I'm not just the only one. James Harden has had issues in the playoffs at times during his NBA career, and that could rear its ugly head once again this time around. Tobias Harris, at times he's pulled the disappearing act. The Sixers need him to be on board for this series, as well as Tyrese Maxey. And in the case of Maxey, he was Philadelphia's leading scorer in their first round series win over the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the PJ Tucker factor, and of course, some people may have questioned why the Sixers, paid PJ Tucker the money that they did. In series like this is why you pay him because PJ Tucker is still a darn good perimeter defender. He knows how to crowd, especially guys that are taller than him. And more than likely, he's probably going to be guarding Jason Tatum a lot during this series. Can PJ Tucker, disrupt Tatum's rhythm as an offensive scorer throughout this series? And I think it's going to be important for the Celtics to go out there and move Tatum around as much as possible, give Philadelphia different looks, try to create mismatches where Tucker is not always on him for the entire series. But advantage Celtics when it comes to depth in this series over Philadelphia. You look at what Jalen Brown stepped up and did, towards the tail end of that series with the Atlanta Hawks. And I think he has the opportunity to have another big series for Boston here. But then, Marcus Smart, a key guard for the Celtics, Al Horford, the veteran in that front court, bringing in guys like Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon. I think this is where Malcolm Brogdon is going to be very important for Boston because he gives them another quality ball handler, and they're going to need it in this series right here. Not to mention the boards with the likes of Robert Williams and Grant Williams. That's going to be big for the Celtics in this series. Now, of course, coaching experience obviously favors the Philadelphia 76ers and Doc Rivers going up against Joe Mazzulla, who is in his first year as not only the Celtics head coach, but a head coach in the NBA altogether. Doc helped the Celtics get a championship back in 2008, but his teams, at times have faltered in the postseason. And of course, people are going to point fingers, whether it was with the Celtics, Los Angeles Clippers, or now Philadelphia 76ers. So it's going to be a battle between the inexperience of Missoula and, of course, the experience of one Doc Rivers. Now, who's going to get the battle of the boards? And that's going to be interesting to see who's going to step up if Embiid is not healthy for the 76ers in this series. Now, some tidbits. Philadelphia was third in the NBA in points allowed during the regular season, while Boston was fifth. The Celtics and Sixers, are fourth and fifth, respectively, in the NBA for this past season in opponents' three-point field goal percentage, while Philly on offense led the NBA in three-point field goal percentage throughout the season. But when it's all said and done, I think the depth of the Celtics, as well as not having a healthy Joel Embiid, will hamper the Sixers championship aspirations. And because of that, I'm going to take Boston to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. Now, on the other side of the bracket, you got two teams in the Miami Heat and New York Knicks that many people didn't expect to be here. They were the lower seeds in each of their respective first round matchups, of course, definitely with the Miami Heat being the 8th seed, defeating the Milwaukee Bucks, a team who had the best record in the regular season in the NBA, and they did it in 5 games. Now, I talked about this recently when the Bucks were eliminated. The Heat are a team that are simply built for the postseason, but especially due to their grit, and they're going to be a very tough out. We know what Jimmy Butler did to the Bucks in the first round, and I guarantee you all eyes for the Knicks are going to be on him, especially coming from Knicks head coach Tom Thibodeau. Of course, once upon a time, Thibs did draft Jimmy Butler in the first round when he was the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, and of course, that is where Jimmy Butler became a household name. But it's just something about this guy. He knows how to rise to the occasion, and I know that he knows that he's going to be getting the lion's share of attention during the series. But again, other guys got to step up. You have championship experience on this Miami team. Kevin Love has been there. He won a championship with the Cavs. Kyle Lowry has been there. He won a championship with the Toronto Raptors. And it's going to be important for an undersized guy like Bam Adebayo to make his presence known on the offensive end, especially on the glass in this series going up against the likes of Mitchell Robinson. Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin were surprise big time contributors in round number 1 for Miami. They're going to have to do it again. The Garden is definitely going to be rocking for game number 1 tomorrow. As the Knicks fans, especially after the Bucks loss to Miami, I really have to feel good about their chances as far as their team getting to the Eastern Conference semifinals for the first time since 2000. Jalen Brunson very quickly has become the best player and the MVP of this Knicks team. RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, what are they going to do in this series, especially since Julius Randle tweaked that ankle once again towards the tail end of the first round series with Cleveland. I do expect Julius Randle to be ready to go for game number 1, but I think this ankle is going to hinder him or bother him rather throughout this entire series, as well as any prolonged trip to end this postseason for the Knickerbockers. Who's going to win the battle on the boards? And of course, New York has a size advantage over Miami. Milwaukee also had a size advantage over Miami, and they did not utilize it. So will that be a factor once again when they tip it off tomorrow afternoon? You look at the likes of Josh Hart. He's been a tremendous contributor for the Knicks since they acquired him just prior to the trade deadline. Manuel quickly, can he have another big impact in this series for the Knicks? A guy like Obi Toppin, and then of course Mitchell Robinson on the boards and as a rim protector. He's going to be big if the Knicks look to advance. Now, during the regular season, the Knicks were second in the NBA in rebounds, while Miami was second in points allowed during the season. But Cleveland was first, and we saw how the Knicks were able to handle them, and they did it with their defense as they basically, blanketed Donovan Mitchell and dared anybody else from the Cavs to beat them, and they couldn't do it. I expect them to have the same type of philosophy going out there with Jimmy Butler here in the second round, but he is a different beast. Now, the Heat were dead last in points scored during the regular season. Obviously, that was not the case during the first round series over the Bucks as they torched them. And this might be a case where, you know what, you just throw the stats out of the window and let these two teams get it on and see who has what it takes to win 4 games in this series and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But when it's all said and done, I think the size factor for the Knicks, and I think the depth of the Knicks, and I think the fact that I really don't see anybody else on Miami being able to consistently step up and take some of the pressure off of Jimmy Butler in this series is going to work. So, with that said, I'm going to take the Knicks to get past the Heat and get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2000. And I see New York doing it in 6 games. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.